Good morning, everybody. I hope it's not snowing too hard where you are. And there seems to be, in Downing Street and amongst the government, they've had a very good couple of days. They're really, really pleased with themselves. She came back on Friday with a deal. And I was amazed that even the quite Eurosceptic members of the cabinet, and indeed on the backbenches, from them there was very little criticism. Indeed, Andrew Rawnsley writes in today's Observer, he says, everyone is happy. Well, everyone except Nigel Farage, with his shouts of betrayal. So this morning, I'm going to be asking you, am I the only one who seems to think that Theresa May has got a rotten deal? And we want your thoughts and your input. And of course, you can do that by calling 0345 6060 973. You can text to 84850. You can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch the show and the interviews live on Facebook and comment there too. Now, it's interesting when the Prime Minister, who was elected on a Brexit means Brexit ticket, gets, I would say, a degree of praise from my next guest, which kind of made me worried had she gone too much towards the pro-EU side. But I'm very pleased to say that joining me this morning is Sir Vince Cable, leader of the Liberal Democrats. Good morning, Vince.
Good morning, Nigel.
And it would be right to say that you were quite complimentary about the Prime Minister on Friday.
Well, what I basically said is she's done the best of a bad job. I don't think it's a great deal, like you. I mean, I think it's what we're going to get out of this is a pretty poor deal. We're paying in vast sums of money, was it 40, 50, maybe 100 billion, who knows? And there's no guarantee we get any kind of acceptable trade deal at the end of it, and it may actually be a rather poor trade deal. So I think that the one big thing that's happened is that the chances of a dramatic break, a crashing out, whatever we want to call it, I think that the chances of that have receded, and the chances have increased of a deal of some kind, which will probably not be a good one from the British public's point of view.
One of the commitments in this document that I was quite surprised by was the concept of regulatory alignment. I mean, hasn't the government effectively said that whilst we're going to leave the European Union, leave the treaty at the end of March 2019, aren't they almost saying we're going to stay part of the single market or very close to it?
That's the way I've interpreted it, yes. It's a very strange passage, and it was put in to try and placate the Irish and the Democratic Unionists at the same time, which is a bit of a contradiction. But what they now seem to be saying is that we will stay within the single market, which is what regulatory convergence means, and the customs union until such a time as we can sort out the problems with the Irish frontier. Well, as you know, this problem has been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, I think this is actually a formula for putting off leaving pretty much forever.
Which means, as far as I'm concerned, that whilst the Conservative Party the sceptics may be very quiet at the moment, I don't think it's going to be very long before she starts to get some quite big divisions within her own cabinet on this.
I'm not sure how quiet they're being. I mean, I did a piece this morning for the Mail on Sunday about Mr. Gove. I think within hours of having poured praise on the Prime Minister, he was quickly regretting it and putting the knife in. No, I think the hardline Eurosceptics, however we want to call them, realise that she has got the better of them in the short run, and with a kind of arrangement that will keep us close to the European Union, and they're preparing for the next round of the battle.
Now, before I get to the Liberal Democrats' position on this, a word from you perhaps about the Labour Party. Where do you see the Labour Party? I mean, help the listeners, because it's quite confusing.
Confusing is very kind and charitable from you.
Well, it's a Sunday morning.
Yes, it is a Sunday morning. They've got away with murder, actually. I mean, there were hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of young people who voted for Jeremy Corbyn in June, thinking that this is a great champion of Europe. And of course, he's nothing of the kind. The leadership of the Labour Party, not the bulk of MPs, but the leadership, has always been very hostile to the European project. I mean, it's an old-fashioned kind of 1970s, rather Leninist view, you know, that the European Union is a wicked capitalist club and we don't want anything to do with it. And they've got away with that, being totally ambiguous as to whether they want Britain to stay in the single market and the customs union. And because all the focus has been on the splits within the government, they've got away with it.
But Keir Starmer is clearly the strongest voice within the Labour Party, and he basically is saying that he wants Labour to sign up to the single market and the customs union for a long period of time, isn't he?
I think that's his personal view, and it's certainly the view of a lot of Labour backbenchers. But the group at the top of the party, Jeremy, John MacDonald and the rest, are in a very, very different place.
And this will all come to a vote, of course, in the Commons this week.
Yes, because my party's put forward something which is designed to keep us within the single market, but politically will hopefully have the effect of flushing out the Labour Party, because if they vote against it, they will be saying, look, no, we don't want to be part of the single market. And then we'll know them where they stand.
Well, we've talked about a slight lack of clarity in Labour and some confusion amongst the Conservatives, so let's just be absolutely clear where the Liberal Democrats stand on this question of the referendum of last year. Are you trying to reverse Brexit?
We think that we should stay within the European Union. We do accept that the referendum happened, the public voted, we're pressing ahead with negotiations. What we do want is a public vote at the end of the negotiations, and if it's a bad deal or no deal, to give the British public the choice, do you want to push ahead with that, or do you want an exit from Brexit? So we do support the principle of having a public vote, not rerunning the last one, but a vote on the facts of Brexit once we know what we are. And I'd have thought, given your faith in the public voice, you might actually come along with us on that, maybe for different reasons, but we might actually count you as an ally.
Vince, all I can see is that since the referendum, a lot of people who voted Remain now say either we've changed our minds, or they say that a democratic result should be respected, we should get on with it. So in a sense, would I mind a second referendum? I think there'd be an even more thumping endorsement of leaving, but I'm not actually sure there's much appetite at this moment in time for there to be a second referendum. That, of course, could change. But I'm very interested, when you talk about an exit from Brexit, that would mean effectively reapplying to join the European Union, wouldn't it?
No, it would involve reapplying to join the European Union if we waited till the whole Article 50 had expired. But if this were carried out before March 2019, which is the way we think it should be, and we will know the results of the negotiation well before then the choice the public would have: do you want to get out of the European Union on the terms the government negotiated, or do you want to stay in?
If we were, and I don't believe it's going to happen, and maybe you want it to, but if we were to stay in, to revoke Article 50 and to stay in, it's quite important to understand that Mr. Juncker made it really clear in his State of Union speech this year that in future, anyone that stays a member of the European Union will not be able to opt out of the single currency, and will have to give up a veto on foreign policy and be part of a European army. I mean, are they all things you want as Liberal Democrat leader?
No, absolutely not. That is, as you quite rightly say, Mr. Juncker's vision. But you may remember that the following day, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, who was a much more sensible and pragmatic chap, said that Mr. Juncker has visions and he should go and see an optician. I think that is that I would regard that as more the mainstream European view.
Well, it's a great line, but let me tell you what the mainstream European view is. I know, because I was there. I was there in the chamber. I listened to Mr. Juncker. He's always highly entertaining, if nothing else. And what was interesting about this speech, about moving on effectively, he didn't use the phrase United States of Europe, although Mr. Schulz in Germany this week has. But everything he was describing was a United States of Europe. And when he'd finished, I saw Liberals and Social Democrats and Conservatives giving him one of the biggest cheering, standing ovations. And one of the things I never understand, and I had this conversation more than once with Nick Clegg, was that it seems that you support the European project, but you never quite want to tell the British people just how deep this political integration is genuinely going to go.
Well, I wouldn't have given him a standing ovation because I don't agree with that vision, and my party doesn't either. I mean, I think what is happening in Europe is you are getting an inner core based on the Eurozone where many of the members share exactly the vision you've just described, but there is an outer group which consists of Scandinavian countries, some East Europeans, and I would like to think Britain, which has got a much more pragmatic approach and which concentrates essentially on the trade benefits of Europe. And that's the view that I would like to see. I mean, Europe's evolving at different speeds, and I think it's very unfortunate and foolish in a way that we're walking away at precisely the time where we could have the pragmatic kind of Europe that I think most British people would be content with.
I think one of the reasons the British people voted to leave and would vote leave again in bigger numbers is that pragmatic vision is losing in the councils of Brussels.
Well, I think, maybe this is an area we disagree, and I would certainly make the case for that pragmatic approach. I'm not a Euro-federalist, and I do believe that nation-states have a major role.
So where would the point come? Where would the point come with the European Union where you, Vince Cable, would say it's gone too far, we should no longer be a part of it?
Well, I think the key dividing line was actually membership of the Eurozone. I mean, that once you've joined the Eurozone, you're inevitably committed to much tighter integration of foreign policy, of overall economic policy. We've not made that decision, and we're therefore, with the Denmarks and Swedens of this world in a different place. And I think that's a much more comfortable place than actually being out of Europe altogether. But on defence, I mean, I don't believe in having a European army, but
it's coming.
The idea of having practical cooperation on defence with Europe makes a great deal of sense when you've got Trump in the United States behaving in a ludicrous, outrageous, dangerous way, whereas having practical defence cooperation with the French and Germans makes much more sense to me. It doesn't involve a European army, but it does involve sensible cooperation.
I still get back to this point. I think the Liberal Democrats are not fully coming clean with the British public about the true intentions of the European project. And to be frank, if we'd listened to leading Liberal Democrats, we would have joined the euro, wouldn't we?
No, I had a leading economic position in my party at that time. What we said was actually not wildly dissimilar from Gordon Brown, that the principle has got attractions, but before Britain joined the Eurozone, two things would have to happen. First of all, there'd have to be a referendum. And secondly, it would have to be on the right economic conditions, which we defined as the right exchange rate. And we were hopelessly overvalued at that time and have been since until the recent devaluation of the currency. So, no, we were not unconditional supporters of joining the Eurozone.
If the European Union does press on, and if the Schulz view wins, and the Juncker view wins, and the Verhofstadt, leader of the Liberals in the European Parliament, fanatical Euro-federalist, if that view wins, would you then say that maybe a trade relationship and not membership of a political club could be the best way forward?
Well, I don't think you can make that absolute distinction. I mean, put yourself in the position of Sweden or Denmark. I mean, they are members of the European Union. They subscribe to it. They see great attractions in having a common approach to, say, environmental issues, global warming, but they don't want to be part of the deep integration which you described and Mr. Juncker obviously idealises. So I think that is where we ought to be.
Well, we will see. I have to say, my feeling in Brussels is that it's moving really full steam ahead towards a complete and full political union, whilst at the same time the electors, whether it's in Austria or the Czech Republic or the British in a referendum, are going in a different direction.
Well, you may not have seen that the German Liberals, I mean, with a lot of differences we have with them, but they've been quite strongly resisting the efforts that have been coming from Macron to have much tighter European integration around the Eurozone. So, there are many voices in Europe, not just on the periphery, which believe that the European project is important but shouldn't be pursued in an extreme federalist way.
And what is the right trade deal for Mrs May to try and get?
Well, the best deal would something like what we got at the moment. But given the choice between a Norwegian-type arrangement, which I think is one of the things on offer, which is basically you accept the rules but you have no say over them, and being out altogether, and we finish up like, say, Indonesia or Argentina. I mean, clearly the former is better than the latter, but it's not very good because it means you have all the problems of the present system and no say over them.
It's not very good democratically either, is it? I mean, 17.4 million people, Vince Cable, voted for independence, voted for us to be free of the European Union. It's not being delivered, is it?
Well, 52% of them voted. It was a majority, you're quite right. But I think what we're now beginning to appreciate are some of the extraordinary complexities of this whole thing, and just walking away and having all the benefits of freedom without paying a price for it, without having any kind of trade arrangement, is not a good outcome. I mean, I think what I think we often forget, and it's an area where I'm surprised we're on different sides of the argument. I mean, the architect of the single market was Mrs. Thatcher, who recognised the benefits to the UK of having a very, very close trade arrangements that goes beyond tariffs. And that is that's the framework that some of us want to preserve.
She very quickly changed her mind about that.
Well, she changed her mind
and said she was conned into it by the civil service, and I mean, whether she may have supported it in 1986, that support did not last long. I mean, the point is, if we're in the single market, customs union, even if we're aligned in regulatory terms, isn't that prohibiting our ability to strike trade deals with the rest of the world?
Well, this is where I don't understand the Brexit argument. What are these trade deals we're going to negotiate? I mean, the biggest one, obviously, would be the United States. You've got a president who is utterly and completely unreliable, who believes in
he's reliable. Well, okay. You may not like what he does, but he's totally reliable.
He believes in economic nationalism, which is the very opposite of having open liberal trade arrangements. He has to get it through Congress, which may well have changed in a year or so's time. You've got India, which is saying, OK, we can have a trade deal with you. You've got to accept many more visas, which Theresa May will not accept. So who are these trade deals going to be with? I mean, you've got Australia and New Zealand. There's a bit of sentiment, but they've already aligned themselves with China and the United States. So this whole idea of signing up lots of trade deals is just a fantasy.
Well, Switzerland have managed it, and Singapore have managed it.
Yes, but what benefits do they get from it? If you look at the Chinese deal with China, basically what the Chinese have done is basically they've got a small country here. They've made sure that they have maximum access to the Swiss market and have given the Swiss virtually nothing in return. Having a trade deal itself is no great advantage. The issue is what are the terms on which you negotiate it?
And there are many that would argue that our trade deal with the European Union costs us a net £10 billion a year, and we run a $70 billion deficit. So, listen, we could argue the merits and demerits.
Yeah, we will.
I want to finish up on a much more human point. So we're coming towards the end of 2017. This time last year, you were not a member of Parliament. You had, as I know it, no ambitions to lead the Liberal Democrats. You were dancing a bit. You were writing a bit. What's happened to your life in 2017?
Well, I managed to finish the novel. That's out on the bookshelves. Sadly, I've had to abandon my plans to go for the National Ballroom Championships in Blackpool, which I was planning to do. But I'm... much shorter nights, earlier mornings, hard work, a lot of grief, but I think it's worth it.
Is politics addictive?
It is a bit addictive, and I think as long as you feel you're doing something good, you can't let go of it.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much indeed. That was Sir Vince Cable, leader of the Liberal Democrats, and proof, I think, that people with diametrically opposed political views can do so in a civilised, proper environment. Well, next, ladies and gentlemen, it's your turn. First, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusive in LBC. It's 10:20.
This is LBC. To be honest, when I heard about this, I thought, you're having a laugh, aren't you? It's called the Smart Meter Power of 10p Challenge, where basically I had to feed as many bodybuilders as possible using just 10p of energy. No pressure then, guys.
Come on, Ainsley.
But after a manic cooking frenzy...
Stop, your 10p's up!
I still managed to prepare an incredible 14 meals. Get in there, my son.
See how far 10p could go in your home. Contact your energy supplier about getting your smart meter at no extra cost.
The Mayor of London, TfL and Westminster City Council are developing proposals to transform Oxford Street into one of the world's best outdoor shopping experiences.
We want to make it easier to walk throughout the area to support a thriving business district and improve neighbourhoods for residents.
Helping to transform Oxford Street and the surrounding area into an unrivaled place to live, work and visit.
To have your say, visit tfl.gov.uk. Consultation ends 17th of December 2017. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Do you ever feel like getting back under your duvet in the middle of the day? Ferroglobin is a great-tasting liquid formula with iron, which contributes to the reduction of tiredness and fatigue and normal formation of haemoglobin. Ferroglobin from Vitabiotics at Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
Oh, nice paper, snowman. Oh, you've wrapped it well. No way! I have wanted this fitness tracker for ages. How did you know?
Surprise them with something thoughtful this Christmas. Free delivery on over 10 million new items. From the sharpest fashion to the techiest tech. eBay. Fill your cart with colour.
At this time of year, there's always one person who's difficult to buy for. That person that seems to have everything. If you're looking for something truly unique this Christmas, then Weber has the gift for you. The Weber iGrill. The thermometer that ensures you serve perfectly cooked food every time. The iGrill connects to an app on your smartphone. Simply tell it what you're cooking, how you'd like it cooked, and the iGrill will tell you when your food is ready. Find your perfect gift at Weber.com. Weber, for life.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
Well, Friday morning was a very lonely place for me to be. As I was saying, this is not a deal. This is a complete capitulation. We've given away a huge sum of money. The European Court of Justice will continue to have a say over this country for nearly up to a decade. The concept that we're signing up to regulatory alignment means we're not really leaving the single market and will massively damage our ability to do trade deals with other parts of the world. And I could go on. I thought it was a rotten deal, but I was surrounded everywhere by people saying how wonderful the whole thing was. And as I mentioned earlier, Andrew Rawnsley says, in today's Observer, everyone is happy. Well, everyone except Nigel Farage. Well, a couple of days have gone by and I'm beginning to see people like Tony Parsons in The Sun on Sunday saying, a great deal, PM, ? What about the Brexit we all voted for? And I personally, I'm not interested in these arguments about complexity and difficulty and technicality. We voted for independence. We voted to leave the Union. I don't think this is being delivered. Well, folks, this is your turn. You know, I'm the only one, am I, that really thinks it's a rotten deal? Tell me, if I've got it wrong, come and tell me where I'm going wrong by calling 0345 6060 973. And I'm going to ask Jason in Sutton, where have I got it wrong, Jason?
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
Really, I think you should really stop being such a snowflake. You know, all your moaning and whining. Just get over it already, Nigel. You won. Stop talking the country down and get on with it.
No, I'm not talking the country down, Jason. I'm talking the Prime Minister down.
Think about it. On that ballot paper was one question.
Yep.
It was, do you want to remain in the EU or do you want to leave the EU?
Yep.
We're leaving the EU. It didn't stay on there whether it's going to be a hard Brexit, soft Brexit, whether we get another trade deal, whether we wouldn't. Talk about immigration, ECJ. None of that was mentioned. None of it was mentioned. The only thing that was mentioned in the campaign, pretty much, was we get an extra £350 million a week, which we all know is a load of old tosh.
Well, what we got was that we'd be able to make our own laws in our own country, judge by our own courts and control our own borders. Surely, Jason, you would agree that was at the absolute centre of the Leave argument.
It was. It was also another pile of old tosh because the government themselves, in a white paper published to the House of Commons, said that the UK has always retained our parliamentary sovereignty. Now, we have that. Okay, we've got seats on the ECJ. The ECJ isn't just some other third-party court. It's got a British judge in there. Now, what the people are calling for is a second kind of international court with British judges and an ECJ judge to look after the rights of EU nationals in the UK. But that's exactly what the ECJ is in the first place. If people like you...
Well, no, Jason, the ECJ is an overtly political court made up in the main of people who aren't even judges.
But they're representative. I mean, we get on to the ECJ, apart from the actual question that you
I don't want the ECJ. I don't want the ECJ to have any jurisdiction at all over this country.
not over the country, but over citizens who are EU citizens.
Which then means, Jason, that a well-heeled French banker living in London has more rights and more recourse to legal systems than all the rest of it. Can that be right?
No, it's absolutely wrong. We should absolutely retain our EU membership, because what you're saying now... listen, what you're saying now...
It's not happening.
That French guy would have because he's an EU citizen, would have better rights than British nationals, because he's an EU citizen. You want to leave the EU and therefore lower the rights of British citizens across the largest trade bloc on the planet.
Do you, Jason, support Mrs May's deal?
No, absolutely not.
You don't? What, you think she should have gone further, do you?
No, I think she's so far out of her depth that somebody should call the Coast Guard.
Right.
Her and David Davis and the rest of them. They just haven't got a clue. Every time they make promises, she's not going to be there to fulfil these promises. Clearly.
Well, I suspect that may well be true. And Jason, just finally, quickly, did you find the words of Sir Vince Cable reassuring when he said the Liberal Democrats want an exit from Brexit? Is that where you think we should be going?
I think we should give the people the choice, a real choice, to say, now we know what Brexit actually is and what it means next October, then let's put that to the vote. Because what we put to the vote before...
And if you lose that referendum, Jason, as well, will you finally accept it, or will you ask for yet another referendum?
Well, this will be the third one, because bear in mind that we won the first one by a vast majority of over 60%. The second one was borderline. Even you yourself said a 52-48 referendum would not be the end of it, and we'd need to keep talking. So I think a third one would be the balancing.
Yeah, and do you know what, Jason? I don't think you'd accept that even. But hey, who's to say? Thank you. I'm going to go to David very quickly in Norwich. David, what do you think?
Hi, Nigel. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I think basically the British people are, in the bulk, angry. My personal view is it's almost as though it's treason on what she's doing to us. It's just been an organised attack on what the British people voted for. June the 23rd last year, UKIP basically led and the British people accepted it. The establishment was so flabbergasted that they'd lost. There has been nothing but a concerted joint attack by them and their media mates, basically to say, no, we don't want it. And that's what's happened. We are being betrayed. We voted to leave, and we should leave. Not what they've done now. It's absolutely disgraceful. Just go on social media and just see what people are saying.
David, I had a feeling I wasn't going to be on my own for very long. And it's not just you that takes a very similar view to me. I suspect many cabinet members, many Tory backbenchers. I think the media's got this completely wrong when they portray overwhelming support for May's deal. David, I think there are millions of people like you out there, and I thank you very much for your input. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 10:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
Birmingham and East Midlands airports have both suspended flights, with delays elsewhere as heavy snow falls across the country. Central England and Wales are worst affected, with an amber weather alert in place for the Midlands and east of England. Stay with LBC for the latest travel news. The leader of the Liberal Democrats has told Nigel the UK will end up with a poor Brexit deal after this week's breakthrough in negotiations. Sir Vince Cable says it offers no guarantee of an acceptable trade deal. And the Foreign Secretaries met the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani in Tehran. Boris Johnson said to have held nearly an hour of talks, thought to include the case of Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe and other dual nationals in prison in the country. LBC weather, those heavy snow showers continuing in most parts of the country, easing through the afternoon, a high of 2 degrees.
LBC travel in Essex. The M11 southbound stays closed between junction 6 for the M25 and junction 4 for the North Circular at Woodford because of a lorry fire earlier. There's debris on the road. There are also queues on the M11 in both directions because of the snow between junction 7 for Harlow and junction 6 for the M25. In Buckinghamshire, there are queues on the M40 southbound. 2 lanes are closed because of cars that have broken down in the snow between junction 4 for High Wycombe and junction 3 for Loudwater. In Surrey, on the M3 southbound, 2 lanes are closed because of an accident between junction 1 for Sunbury and junction 2 for the M25. The snow is causing problems on the tube, including no service on the entire Metropolitan line and no Piccadilly line between Acton Town and Uxbridge and Arnos Grove and Cockfosters. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Garth.
This is LBC.
The Daily Express says if you read one book this year, make sure it's Adam Kay's This Is Going to Hurt, Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor. With over 500 5-star reviews on Amazon, this scalpel-sharp account of life on the front line of the NHS has been called required reading by the Mail on Sunday, hilarious and heartbreaking by the Times, and laugh-out-loud funny by Jonathan Ross. Find out what all the fuss is about and pick up your copy today. This Is Going to Hurt. Available now as a hardback, ebook and audiobook.
In England, some constituencies have a lot more electors in them than other constituencies. Boundaries are changing to make parliamentary constituencies more equal. Don't miss the last chance to help us shape the new constituencies in your local area. Time is running out. View a map of the proposed changes in your area and have your say at bce2018.org.uk.
Getting set to deck the halls? At B&Q, we've got a huge Christmas range of real and artificial trees, decorations and lights, including 120 LED lights. Was £9, now £7. Hurry, that's an unmissable offer. For great deals this weekend, come to B&Q. Offer in store only, while stocks last. Some stores excluded. See DIY.com for details.
Right now, while you heat up last night's pizza, a rock legend is leaving his dressing room. There's a stadium out there buzzing with anticipation. And the world champion ready for the starting bell. So, what are you waiting for? Buy and sell tickets to your favourite events on StubHub.co.uk. StubHub, your tickets out.
Izzy?
Mark, hi.
They want 1,000 of the red dress, 50 now, with pictures.
That's wonderful, but not sure I got 50 in stock. I'll get Car on conference. Mark?
Yeah?
We've got them. Uploading the pictures now. You got your tablet?
Yeah, looking now. Want to do more in less time? Unified Communications joins up your landlines, mobiles and tablets to improve customer service. The future is exciting. Ready? Search Vodafone Business. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, what's this one here? To Uncle Gary, Merry Xmas, love Polly, kiss, kiss. Bit overwrapped, that's fine.
Oh, wow. These trainers are meant to be sold out everywhere. How did she even get hold of these?
Surprise them with something thoughtful this Christmas. Check eBay now for great prices on great brands. From the sharpest fashion to the techiest tech, eBay. Fill your cart with colour.
Is your business structured in the correct way to manage your exposure to income tax, capital gains tax and inheritance tax? Does your business structure assist you in achieving your goals? Or do you feel like you suffer a tax charge every time you want to do something new? Let Barnes Rofe look at your business structure and see if we can help you with these issues. Visit barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
On Friday morning, they were all praising Theresa May. Mr Juncker was being nice to her. Mr Tusk was being nice to her. Mr Barnier was being nice to her. Nearly everybody in the Conservative press was being nice to her. Vince Cable was being nice about her. Everybody thought it was absolutely wonderful, a great deal. And I thought it was rotten. I thought it was a capitulation. And how's it a deal? We've put all these offers on the table. We've met nearly every single demand that they've made. And what have we got in return? They're going to talk to us now about trade. Well, that's nice, isn't it? That's great, isn't it? I mean, talk about the humiliation of it all. I mean, a British Prime Minister that has to leave Downing Street at 4:45 in the morning to fly through the night to meet unelected bigwigs in Brussels and say, please, 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 be nice to us and talk to us about trade. I don't see it as a great victory at all. And now 48 hours have gone by, I'm beginning to see one or two other commentators taking a similar view. And basically, folks, what I'm saying is this is not what we voted for. That's my view. Graham says, an excellent debate between you and Vince Cable, measured, patient and absorbing, should be required listening. BBC, take note. Good Lord. Don't worry, Nigel, you're not alone. I and a whole bunch of leavers I know are as disgusted as you are. Nigel, I'm not happy. We've been humiliated for months and the only concession we got is an oh-so-generous agreement to continue talks. It is beyond a joke. How can it be a good deal? 39 billion, and that's not yet been agreed with the EU. It will end up being much, much more. Well, do you know something, Billy and Romford? David Jones, Tory MP for Clwyd West, also takes the same view. And David Davis this morning saying, no, 39 billion is tops. I think he's taking a very trusting view of the people we're trying to do business with in Brussels. I suspect the exit bill will finish up being a lot higher than that. And I just think that you go through the newspapers on a day like today, and in general, they're saying how well she's done. Her finest hour was written in one of the big Sunday papers. Talk, yes, about some division within the cabinet, but overall, the voice is being barely represented that this is not what we voted for. And I think that whilst I may look to be a very lonely figure on this, hey, this is not the first time in my experience in politics or public life that I've been in a lonely place. I've generally found the lonelier I am amongst the political classes and the political elites, the more support my view has in the country. We'll see. I've got a first-time caller from Kingston, Kate, on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. And may I say, I think it's long barber weather at the moment, isn't it?
It certainly is, absolutely. And I should be wearing mine this afternoon, don't worry. And I did notice that there was not much salt on the roads this morning as I drove in through.
No, interestingly, yes, interesting on that point, Nigel. In fact, a long while back, my local Surrey County council actually went to Sweden and studied the fact that if you put salt with water, it makes the roads far more efficiently gritted or salted or whatever. But anyway, the effect on cars isn't great. I really wanted to ask you why you see it as a humiliation. I'm very interested in your motivation. It's fascinating. You're a fine figure of a man. You put yourself across really well. You wear incredibly well-tailored suits, which I admire greatly. Tailoring's in my family. And I just really always wanted to talk to you, in fact.
Well, why do I see it as a humiliation? I think to have even accepted, Kate, from day one, the basis of these negotiations, that unless we jumped over these hurdles that they put in front of us, they wouldn't even lower themselves to talk about trade. I don't think we should ever have accepted that in the first place. And I also think the fact that they set this 6:50 a.m. deadline effectively. Do you know why it was done? Because
well, I think I do, actually, but go on.
Well, Mr. Tusk was flying off to Hungary to collect an honorary doctorate at a university. And for that, the Prime Minister has to leave Downing Street at 4:45 in the morning. I mean...
Yes, can I have a quick word, Nigel?
Yeah, you asked.
To talk to you, and you're on the radio all the time, and I'm hardly ever on the radio. It's never.
Well, you are now. You're on LBC.
I am now.
You can say what you like. Well, within reason, Kate, you can say what you like.
Get on. Yeah, right. Lovely. Okay. Yes, I'm interested in the from day one business. The thing is, we live in such a complex global world of trade, as you know. And in fact, what was also happening yesterday, and probably why she had to catch the plane so early, was that the EU had just signed a great big economic partnership arrangement with Japan. So, we live in a world of real politics, of supply chains. Apparently Nissan have been looking at sites in Slovakia and whatever. So we have to cope with a world as it is, not as the world we want it to be. I take your point about day one, but everyone's been motoring on since then, so to speak. So, in fact, if the pound were weaker, it's quite a good thing because it means that, we could have cheaper American imports and that kind of thing. And people who've put forward on the euro will do well out of it. So there's a whole world out there of people doing things while we're getting cross, and quite rightly so in some ways. And, to the man out there now driving our supply lorry down to put a food in the supermarket, he's out on those roads, I'm not. And I have huge respect for all those people who keep the country running. And they run the country, not Theresa May, as she says she runs the country. She doesn't. They run the country. People like that run the country, who keep our country operating and going. And I'm very upset that, the real politics hasn't been taken into account. And people are only told a little bit. So you can like the blue touch paper in the tie, and I wonder where that's going to be, whether it's going to be Peru with your friend Dan Hannon, or whether it's going to be somewhere nice and warm. But, we've all got to make a go of it, haven't we? So I'm just wondering what your motivation is. You talked about being lonely. I think your motivation is, just like mine, I had a crap childhood, a horrible time, and it makes you very angry. And you understand people's anger, and you're not afraid of anything. And I'm not afraid of too much. And that's, I think, the nub of it, is the sheer loneliness of being alive. And that's what's driven you all your political life.
I have a very different view, Kate. I have a very different view of where I think we should go in the future to most of our political class. You may have heard the conversation I had with Vince Cable a few minutes ago. I thought one of the most interesting comments that Vince made when I talked to him about my worries that if we're aligned in terms of regulation, it's going to make it very difficult to sign trade deals with other parts of the world. And Vince kind of said, well, what other parts of the world? What are you talking about? As if Europe was the great thing. And for me, Kate, 85% of the global economy is outside the Eurozone. That is where the fastest growth in much of the and the problem with this deal that the Prime Minister has done is, and she wants now to go on, of course, to have a further deferral of a couple of years, is that we are effectively saying that from the day we voted Brexit to the day we're able to sign a deal with anybody else will be a minimum of 6 years. And that, Kate, is my frustration.
Okay, well, while you're thinking about the future, Nigel, the rest of us have got to get up every morning. We can't light the blue touch paper under the Conservative Party and retire. We've got to just get on, live our lives, get out there, clean toilets or do whatever we have to do to keep the world a civilised place. And you know what? My grandfather, he was a tailor, and when he came back from being a prisoner of war in 1918, he had to just you couldn't go and have a nice whiskey in a bar. He had to pick up his shears and get on and start tailoring again, even though his younger brother, who'd been exempted from war service because so many of the brothers had been killed, just like Private Ryan, they had to get on with their lives, pick up their tailor shears and make a living. Make your suits.
And we will, Kate, get on with our lives. It's just a question of whether we do it as being in an independent country or one that is still tied to most of the EU. I wonder what Adam in Carrickfergus thinks. Good morning.
Hi, Nigel. Nice to speak to you again.
Good morning.
I spoke to you before.
I remember,
I asked you not to, if you would say a bit more often that I told you so. But I'm going to tell you, I told you so, this would happen. And you said I was pessimistic. What I wanted to say...
I didn't say you were wrong, Adam, did I?
Well, you said I was pessimistic. No, you didn't say I was wrong, that's right. You didn't. But, what annoys me more than anything, Nigel, is you get people like Vince Cable coming on saying that, oh, we need to pay. We've already paid, I think you'll find, if he was to go and visit the war graves. Also, they say all the time about the bus, about the 350, and also that we didn't know what we was voting for, and on the electoral paper, that it was just in or out, and we didn't do this and did. I remember David Cameron and his party had a discussion on what was going to go on that paper, and they made it, because we were so thick and racist and all the rest of it, that we didn't understand it, that it was going to be an in or out. That was it. It was simple. It was made simple by the Remoaners. And now that now it's happened and we've got the Brexit, that's going back on what they originally organised themselves.
Is it fair to call you angry of Carrickfergus this morning?
I am annoyed because I listened to Andrew Mardis today and the same old nonsense pumped out every day on the BBC, and he listened to LBC, and there's only a few Brexit people coming on and actually talking the truth.
Adam, I think there are millions of us. Adam, I thank you. And Gary says on Facebook, it's simply not what we voted for. Hear, hear, Gary. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 10:45.
LBC Through Your Workday with James O'Brien from 10, followed by Sheila Fogarty at 1 p.m.
So will you say they are neo-Nazis?
Well, I'm not so sure.
You tried to lump all of those people together as the right. There's nothing wrong with the right. There's a lot wrong with neo-Nazis.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
In winter, 1 minute it's, the next it's, and the next it's... If your boiler's as unpredictable as the weather, now's the time to get a new one with 0% interest-free credit for 2 years from British Gas. I thought penguins didn't get cold, Wilbur. For a new boiler with interest-free credit, search British Gas New Boiler. Offer ends 31st of December. Stay a step ahead of winter with British Gas. Conditions apply. We're a credit broker offering products from a panel of lenders. Credit subject to status.
Imagine if your business's complete IT requirements could come straight out of a box. Well, that's what Intersys can offer. Complete IT management, cybersecurity, backup and disaster recovery, all straight out of the box.
To see how Intersys can manage all your IT, leaving you free to run the business, just search intersys.co.uk. That's INTERSYS.
And think IT out of the box with Intersys, a partner you can trust.
If you own a Swiss watch and it's time to sell it, speak to watches.co.uk. The whole process runs like clockwork. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Omega and more. It only takes a couple of ticks and we pay immediately. Or if you just fancy a change, we could take yours in part exchange. From time on your hands to money in your pocket, it couldn't be easier with watches.co.uk. The pre-owned Swiss watch specialist.
This year, will the fairy lights actually work first time? Will the Christmas tree hold its needles until, you know, Christmas? Will the big day pass off without a big row? Will the roast potatoes be done at the same time as the turkey for once? This Christmas, you've got enough on your plate. But at least with a fixed price plan from TalkTalk, you don't need to worry about your bills going up. Our TV and fast broadband bundle is now just $27.50 a month, including line rental for the entire 18-month plan. Because peace of mind? It matters. TalkTalk. For everyone. TV box at £25. Terms and conditions apply.
In England, some constituencies have a lot more electors in them than other constituencies. Boundaries are changing to make parliamentary constituencies more equal. Don't miss the last chance to help us shape the new constituencies in your local area. Time is running out. View a map of the proposed changes in your area and have your say at bce2018.org.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Philip on Twitter says, refreshing to have people with opposing views having a polite conversation about Brexit. If only the campaign had remained on the issues rather than the insults. Well, I'm afraid in a big national referendum, that was just never, ever going to be possible. So, little lonely old me on Friday, almost the only person critical of this so-called deal. And I'm asking you, have I got this completely wrong? I'm going to ask Ben in Bristol. Ben, am I wrong about this? Should we be celebrating this deal?
Yeah, you are wrong, Nigel. You put a lot of work in. It's understandable. Listening to you talk about Brexit, okay?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, there's a new Star Wars film coming out next week.
I didn't, but go on.
It's probably a really good film, yeah?
Yeah.
But if you go with a Star Wars geek, they'll say, oh, but that wasn't the way it was done in the original and that character's actually dead or this, that and the other. They get pernickety, you see. But everyone else is enjoying the film. Does this make sense? I think you put a lot in, Nigel, yeah? But this deal is a good deal. Giving away $40 billion for the price of national freedom, autonomy, spiritually, politically, is a bargain.
Well, do you know what? If you were right, if it was just a case of, okay, 40 billion's a big sum of money, but we're free of everything, then do you know what, Ben?
Free.
I might agree with you.
Brexit.
I might agree with you.
Nigel, do you remember a few weeks ago, they put it on your website, I told you to relax. You didn't listen to me, Nigel, did you? I told you to relax.
Regulatory.
It's a Brexit. It's fine. Nigel, it's fine.
So it's single... Okay.
It's okay.
Single market rules are fine, are they?
Look, it's not. Look, there's just me a few years where some of the rules still apply. Okay, now Theresa May is sensible. You can't just go. You can't charge in there, stick two fingers up to them, say we're not giving you any money and we're pulling out tomorrow. It just don't work like that. They were very charmed by Theresa May. It's proven herself.
I bet they were
deeply for many weeks.
I bet they were, Ben.
It's so cynical.
40 billion quid. I'd be charmed.
Look, 40 billion quid. Look, do you not think that that has charmed them and they're going to be more open-minded on the trade deals now? If you went in there and stuck two fingers up to them and said, we're giving you nothing, they would have given you nothing back. And these trade deals are important. This is the big problem with Brexit. By the way, I'm in favour of the Brexit, okay? But the problem will be the trade. The trade's going to take such a hit, Nigel, okay? So there needs to be a transition period. 3 or 4 years. We've been trading with these guys full on for 40 years.
Ben, explain to me why. Explain to me why.
Transition period of a few years. Give the businesses some time to make other links. It's not. You can't do it in 24 hours, Nigel.
So if you have a transition, Ben, And if you have a transition that lasts until the next general election, which is almost certainly where we're going over the course of the next few weeks, you can get a situation where a Corbyn-led coalition could well be elected if Keir Starmer's view, holds sway in the Labour Party, where we actually are stuck inside the single market and customs union for many, many years or decades to come.
Nigel, mark these words, that's not going to happen, okay?
What isn't?
And also, he peaked at the last election, Corbyn's got some nice... Theresa May, people are taking a second look at her now, believe me. They're seeing that all along we did have the right person for the job. The fact that she was kind of not on with the Brexit before, she's a perfect fit. She knows what needs to be done. She's doing the Brexit. She's getting it done. It's fine. Now, there was never, yourself, they were never going to get a hard border on Northern Ireland. And they will. If things get out of hand in Northern Ireland, they'll put a hard border in because people say we can't. The immigration problem was never going to be through Northern Ireland. It was people coming straight over. That will be fine. And there will be a massive reduction on the immigration. There will be. You are going to get the autonomy. You are going to get the Brexit. She's done a cracking deal, and she deserves respect. You look at the pressure and the slandering, even from you, Nigel, that woman has taken over the last few months. And I've been one of the few voices on your phone-in and other phone-ins saying this is a good woman. Give her respect. Trust that she knows what she's doing, okay? You don't need somebody too extreme on these talks, okay? You need someone who's peaceable, who's wise, and who can appeal to both sides, but is faithful to what the vote asks for. People like
Ben, you're absolutely fine to praise her personal qualities, and that's fine. And many other people today in the newspapers talk about her resilience, particularly after what happened on Monday with the DUP. But I'm afraid, Ben, to me, she is not going to deliver what very clearly people voted for. We voted for independence, and what we're getting is dither, delay, and this next general election looks to me like it's going to be refought on this issue. But Ben, making a very strong argument for Theresa May. Andy is calling from Walton-on-the-Naze. How's Walton-on-the-Naze for you this morning, Andy?
It's lovely. We've got a bit of snow, but it's not settling, Nigel.
Right.
It's an honour to speak to you.
And what's your assessment 48 hours on from the so-called deal?
I like your line, Nigel. You never trust a Tory.
Right.
And I actually feel that is bang on the money at the minute because... we've been sold out. We have. It's like treason, this. It's betrayal.
You feel as strongly as that, Andy, dear?
Yes, I do. And also, I have deep concerns about the ECJ and the citizens' right for EU citizens over British citizens. I've done a fact packet calculation based on 4 in a family times 2 either side. That equates to 24 million people in my books. Can have the full rights to come and live here.
Well, I mean, free movement, of course, was one of the major issues of the referendum. At the moment, there's been no change at all. Clearly, if we go into a transition period, it's very unlikely that much is going to change during that period. I don't think, Andy, they've even begun to think about or grip the immigration issue or the fishing issue or so many of these things. And I think where they're taking us towards a kind of a Norway Plus model. That's where we're going. We're going to sort of have some sort of new form of single market membership where the British Parliament has virtually no say over the rules and regulations that affect the British economy. That, Andy, I think is where they're taking us. And they'll say, oh, it's okay, it's Brexit because we've left the treaties. But my fear is it'll be Brexit in name only. Andy, I thank you. And I'm going to get a Mike in Bournemouth. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, Mike, I just don't think we're getting what we voted for, Mike. That's the point.
No. Well, I voted to join the EEC back in the 70s.
Yep.
And that's all I've ever had a vote on.
Yep.
I voted to leave the EU, which I never had a vote to join in the first place. As far as I'm concerned, why can't we go back to EEC rules? I think that the EU, at the moment, is a continuation of the Third Reich, which cost 80 million lives.
Well,
they're trying to do politically in Germany what they failed to do twice by wars in the 20th century.
Well, Germany may well be the dominant partner, and it is a German-dominated Europe, but it became a German-dominated Europe, actually, with the Eurozone crisis and banking collapse of 2008, in many ways because Mrs. Merkel was the only competent leader there, and because she had authority, unlike the unelected leaders in Brussels. I wouldn't take the German analogy any further than that. Do you see any hope, Mike, for our Brexit process, or do you really feel...
I see a little bit of hope, but I was hoping when I voted Brexit that we'd be pretty much out by now, and it doesn't seem to be anything but obfuscation and confusion, making everybody wonder where the hell we're going to, basically.
Yeah, it's taking too long. Mike, I thank you, and I'm going to go to Thomas in Glasgow. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure to talk to you.
I thought it was myself who was the only one who thought that Theresa May has just sold us down the river because everybody was giving us such a positive press. Unlike your last caller, please, I'm not comparing the EU to the Nazis. However, what I am comparing Theresa May to is Neville Chamberlain. It's appeasement, and appeasement doesn't work. It didn't work in 1939. There's been other issues of appeasement, and it doesn't work. Now what she's done is given the EU carte blanche to really bully her, because they see that she will capitulate.
Yes.
And now when it comes to the trade talks, then they know that they can bully her. Eventually she will give in. And I don't understand, why are we seeking a trade deal from the EU as opposed to growing up here and actually saying, do you want a trade deal with us? There doesn't seem to be a two-way street. We're begging for this trade deal.
Well, Thomas, one thing I'm completely with you on is that given the number of concessions that she's made, for them to even allow a discussion about the next phase, it's pretty clear to me where the authority lies. And on Monday of last week, when they thought that she may be forced from government because of the crisis of not telling the DUP what she was up to, the people panicking more than anybody were Juncker, Barnier and Tusk. They are now Mrs. May's biggest supporters, Thomas, which maybe tells us as much as we need to know. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show. Now, there are so many of you that want to talk on this subject. We're going to keep this going over the course of the next hour. Earlier on, we heard from Vince Cable, and he wants to exit from Brexit, and that's his view. But in the next hour, we're going to get somebody with a very different point of view. We're going to get Conservative MP for Wellingborough, Peter Bone. He's going to be here to share his views. He'll be with us in about 20 minutes. So, rather than me ask him the questions, I want you to ask Mr. Bone the questions. Text me on 84850 with questions for Peter Bone. Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch me on Facebook. I'm live from a snowy London next.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, heavy snow is causing widespread disruption across much of the country, with road, rail and air travel affected. An amber weather alert's been extended and lasts all day for Wales and parts of central England, with a wider yellow warning. LBC's Hannah Griffiths is in Birmingham, which has seen some of the heaviest snowfall.
The snow continues to fall across the Midlands. It's been coming down since the early hours. Birmingham Airport has suspended its flights while they try to clear their runway, as has now East Midlands Airport too. Many of the roads have become impassable, especially around Worcestershire.
The snow is also falling further south. Luton Airport suspended all flights until at least 11:30. In London, several underground and train lines are suspended, with reports of delays at Heathrow. Our reporter Josh Coop has an update for the Thames Valley.
25 snowploughs are out clearing major roads around Oxfordshire this morning. Loads of cars have been stranded on the M40, and there's more snow expected here later.
Stay with LBC for the latest travel updates through the day. Boris Johnson's raised concerns about dual nationals in prison in Iran in a meeting with the country's president. It was expected the Foreign Secretary would press for the release of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe from North London, who's in prison accused of spying, which she denies. She's due to appear in court in Tehran later to face further charges. The leader of the Liberal Democrats has told Nigel the UK will end up with a poor Brexit deal. It follows the completion of the first round of negotiations on Friday. Sir Vince Cable says the chances of a dramatic break have diminished. leaving limited options.
We're paying vast sums of money, was it 40, 50, maybe 100 billion, who knows? And there's no guarantee we get any kind of acceptable trade deal at the end of it, and it may actually be a rather poor trade deal.
There have been violent clashes near the US Embassy in Lebanon in the latest protest against President Donald Trump's decision to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Earlier, the Arab League called the move a dangerous violation of international law and urged Washington to reverse it. Universities in England could soon offer accelerated degrees. The courses, which typically take 2 years, would cost up to £11,000 a year, but offer a saving compared to a 3-year programme. Universities Minister Joe Johnson has told LBC it will make university more accessible.
We want more choice to be available in the system, and that's why we're removing barriers to the provision of accelerated 2-year degrees. The same quality, the same degree, but at significantly lower cost and a much faster route back into work.
LBC weather, those heavy snow showers continuing in most parts of the country but easing through the afternoon, a high of 4 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Thomas Watts.
My dad was a mechanic for 40 years. He took me and my brother on when we left school. Now we have our own garage where we service and restore cars. We found this beautiful E-Type Jag online the other day. They don't come on the market very often. We could have made a nice job of that, but yeah, we didn't have the money. It'll be sitting in someone else's garage now. Shame, but that won't happen again.
Sometimes small businesses need cash to make the most of their opportunities. That's why Lloyds Bank approve 8 out of 10 business loans and overdrafts. Lloyds Bank, whatever your next step, we'll be by your side. Lloyds Bank, all lending is subject to status. 8 out of 10 relates to loans and overdrafts in the period September 2016 to August 2017.
LBC Travel in Essex. The M11 southbound stays closed between Junction 6 for the M25 and Junction 4 for Woodford because of debris on the road after a lorry fire earlier on. There were long queues all the way from Junction 14 for the A14 at Girton, with snow also affecting the traffic. In Buckinghamshire, there are queues on the M25 clockwise. 2 lanes are closed because of an accident in the snow between Junction 16 for the M40 and Junction 17 for Maple Cross. Also in Buckinghamshire, there are queues on the M40 southbound. 2 lanes are closed because of cars that have broken down in the snow between Junction 4 for High Wycombe and Junction 3 for Loudwater. In Surrey, on the M3 southbound, 2 lanes are closed because of an accident between Junction 1 for Sunbury and Junction 2 for the M25, and the snow is causing problems on the tube, including no service on the entire Metropolitan line. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
It's the only debate in town today. It's Theresa May's so-called deal in Brussels. And generally, the press, the commentators are saying she's done a wonderful job. Things look very bleak for her. On Monday, when having done a deal behind the back of the DUP, they put their foot very firmly down and said no. And we're now being told this is perhaps her finest hour. I do not see it like that at all. I was very much on my own, it felt, on Friday in being critical of many aspects of this deal. I sense there are more people now beginning to think the same way. And en route to us, we have, having had Vince Cable earlier, we've got Brexiteer, Conservative Member of Parliament, Peter Bone. He's on his way, a very, very strong campaigner for Brexit. I'll be fascinated to see just how supportive he's being, not just of the Prime Minister, but of this deal this morning, because I shared a lot of platforms with Peter Bone in that referendum campaign, and I don't think this deal represents many of the things that Peter Bone and I asked the electors to go along with. But you can ask him questions on this, and you can just text to 84850 if you've got any questions you want to directly ask Peter Bone about this deal and about the Prime Minister. I'm off to Ross in Millwall next. Good morning, Ross.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. So, does this deal take us in the right direction?
I would say no. I'll come straight out and say I'm a passionate Remainer.
Right.
And what I want to say to you, as politely as I can, is I don't believe you.
Right.
I think you're putting on a performance of protest against what's happened to try and placate, try to neutralise the sort of moderate centre into not scrutinising things any further. And if Brexit actually happens and this fudge survives through till March 2019, then Brexit will have happened. And then the real nasty stuff will start.
The nasty stuff, Ross?
Yeah, it won't stop. I mean, so you get to 2019, and this situation which you're moaning about, this, these bizarre wording of, regulatory
alignment, very worrying indeed,
is in place. Yeah, worrying. But so what happens after that? So what does the sort of tabloid press do at that stage? They just say, okay, well, that's, we got Brexit and all's fine, so we'll just truck along now. They start saying, there's always going to be bad economic news, and every time there is, it'll be, well, we could have had a fantastic deal with the Americans if we didn't have this in place. And the focus will go back to the Irish border. The intense spotlight will be on that place where it shouldn't be. I know your average hardline Brexiteer doesn't give a damn about the Irish and what happens over there, but that's what's going to happen.
Really? What? Sorry, Ross. What evidence do you have for suggesting that Brexiteers couldn't give a damn about Northern or Southern Ireland?
You just have to listen to Owen Paterson, even someone like the thinking man's Brexiteer Michael Portillo on This Week. When Ireland came up, he sort of gave a little chuckle and said, there's been a lot of back and forth and unpleasantness between England and Ireland over the centuries. And it's like, you're supposed to have a decent grasp of history.
Ross, you can talk about the difficulties of trade and the complexities and everything else, but I want to say this to you, and you're a passionate Remainer, I was a passionate Leaver, I still am. What we voted for in that referendum is we voted for independence. We voted to leave the European Union, to leave its institutions, and to get back to making our own laws. And whilst one thing we will agree on is that, on current course, legally Brexit will happen on March the 29th, 2019. My argument, Ross, is we're going to finish up here with Brexit in name only. That's my frustration.
So then what happens from that point onwards? How do you see the public debate continuing at that point? You're a very astute politician. How do you see it playing out from then?
Well,
it's going to,
what we've done here,
be a good society to live in.
A good society to live in would be a free democratic society in which people had confidence that they could actually have real control over their own futures. And that's one of the main democratic reasons, Ross, for being opposed to the European Union, is that no voter in the EU can in any way change any of the laws. But Ross, I think we're going to finish up here.
If we were more engaged, if we hadn't been poisoned for the last 20, 30 years about our connection with Europe through the press, through the public discourse, through Boris Johnson making up stories about how things go on in Brussels, then there would have been more engagement and your argument would hold less.
Ross...
So once Brexit happens, am I okay to start a party, that constantly undermines the validity of Westminster and all its...
Of course, if Brexit happens, if you want to form a party to give away our independence, to re-sign up as a province to a new United States of Europe, you are absolutely fully entitled to do so. And that's how democracy works. Rupert says on Facebook, the Tories are history. We will see at the next general election just how unpopular they are. The Tories don't represent any of us normal folk. The problem is neither does Corbyn. Kevin says nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. We can still leave without a deal, hopefully. Well, that is true, Kevin, but we have shown already what we're prepared to put on the table, and I'm very certain of one thing. Before we get anywhere near a deal, they will ask us for an awful lot more. Joe says, we voted, we won, yet we have no power over the negotiations. Why? Why aren't we standing our ground? We need to challenge Parliament to rid itself of incompetence. In between elections, Joe, not necessarily an easy thing to do. James is my next caller in Gillingham. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Nigel. Always good to hear you on the radio.
Well, that's very sweet of you.
Very entertaining, although I don't always agree with you.
Well, I should hope not, James, because no two intelligent human beings could ever agree with each other all of the time.
Well, that's the first time I've been called intelligent.
Well, there you are. It's a good start. It's snowing, you've been called intelligent. It's quite a day, really. So tell me, James.
Now let's get to the cut of it, okay?
Yeah.
Theresa May has managed to unite Leavers and Remainers together, albeit for different reasons, in that none of us like what she signed up to.
So she's done a good job, James, of party management, you'd say?
I think it's absolutely right. All this business has been about the internal divisions in the Conservative Party and about sort of trying to placate each side of the divide in the Conservative Party. It was quite funny when there was almost a deal and it got put off when the telephone call when she received a telephone call from the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
The real one in Belfast.
Yes, the Iron Lady, the new Iron Lady of British politics.
Iron Lady, Arlene Foster, or what I call her, the real Prime Minister.
Right.
So what we've got here, we've got a Prime Minister who's prepared to give in. She gave in to Arlene Foster in Northern Ireland, and she's given in to the EU to a degree, or to a big degree, depending on your perspective. So she's a give-in Prime Minister. Well, I think her days are numbered, really. She might have bought herself a little bit of time, but you've got David Davis on the TV today saying, well, it's not a binding deal, and you've got Michael Gove saying, the British people can vote, can abrogate this deal, but I notice he says it after they've had a general election, so it's a bit too bloody late then to abrogate anything. I'll tickle it.
So James, you still see her position, despite what's being said in the press today, you still see her position as being weak, yeah?
Well, let me tell you this, right? I wrote something on my Facebook page as soon as I heard this deal come through, and I did it rather in jest than anything, in which I said that arrangements are being made for the triumphal entry of Theresa May into the Commons on Monday. Right, the Conservatives will all be waving their order papers, and the music will strike up. "See the Conquering Hero Comes" by George Frederick Handel, and she hasn't. They've just hooping up that, and they're building her. They've been building her up into some sort of Bodicea-like figure, and she's not. She's not even Margaret Thatcher. At least you wouldn't say anything about Margaret Thatcher. She was a real tough lady, even if you didn't like her. You had to respect her.
James, you're sceptical, James. I thank you very much for your point of view. In history, Theresa May will go down as the PM who sold us down the river. Theresa the Appeaser, says Polly from N10. So lots of views this morning about Theresa May. Lots of views about the deal and its validity. Gary from Stoke says, we could have saved a lot of time and money by sending a tape recording of Neil Kinnock shouting "all right" in the American style at that conference years ago to every question put to us by the EU. Well, we could have done that, Gary. Ultimately, we have agreed to almost every single demand they put on us 10 months ago. What have we spent 10 months doing? Waiting to agree to everything they asked us for in the first place. Perhaps, although perhaps even more money than any of us could ever have thought. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 11:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
So the Brussels Brexit breakfast deal is done. It's fair to say it's a sketchy amount of detail emerging at this time, but sufficient progress has been made. Sir Andrew Khan, who's former Chief Executive Officer of UK Trade and Investment and a former senior diplomat in Brussels.
The important thing is that we now move on to the next stage. Everybody is saying we're going to move on to trade talks. We're not going to agree a trade agreement in the next 2 years.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Hampton by Hilton. Book direct for the lowest price.
Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
In England, some constituencies have a lot more electors in them than other constituencies. Boundaries are changing to make parliamentary constituencies more equal. Don't miss the last chance to help us shape the new constituencies in your local area. Time is running out. View a map of the proposed changes in your area and have your say at bce2018.org.
Fleet managers. Maybe you don't use fleet tracking because maybe your fleet seems safe and secure. Maybe your fuel costs seem okay. Maybe your drivers manage just fine without it. Maybe it's time to stop running your business on maybes. Fleetmatic's fleet tracking solutions can help you reduce your costs, serve more customers, and improve the safety of your employees' driving habits anytime, anywhere. Maybe that's worth a call. Text the word fleet to 66777 or visit fleetmatics.co.uk. Fleetmatics, a Verizon company.
Busy day ahead. Cold or flu holding you back? Try Sudafed. Our range of tablets and fast-acting nasal sprays provide effective relief from cold and flu symptoms, unblocking your nose and easing the feeling of pressure and heaviness in your head, so you can take control and get on with your day. For a clear head, try Sudafed. Available in most supermarkets and pharmacies. Sudafed Sinus Pain Relief Tablets. Sudafed Block Nose Spray contains xylometazoline. Always read the label.
Is your business structured in the correct way to manage your exposure to income tax, capital gains tax and inheritance tax? Does your business structure assist you in achieving your goals? Or do you feel like you suffer a tax charge every time you want to do something new? Let Barnes Rofe look at your business structure and see if we can help you with these issues. Visit barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
On a travel pack tailor-made holiday, you get to see the very best of the world. Tour the famous Route 66, the spectacular Canadian Rockies. Experience the magic and history of India, the wilds of Africa, or the exotic Far East. Start your journey with Travel Pack. For amazing prices on your tailor-made holiday of a lifetime, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Atoll Protected.
Christmas. Made merrier with Sky Mobile. Unwrap a range of unmissable offers, like the Samsung Galaxy S8 with a Tab A7, for just £30 a month, with 500 megabytes of data. Plus, join Sky Mobile today and get a Sky Store voucher to watch our latest releases. Ring in a Christmas made merrier. Search Sky Mobile. Ends 28 December, 30-month interest-free loan and data plan required for handset, 12-month minimum term, 18+, includes handset only and pay-as-you-go calls and texts for non-Sky TV customers. Subject to status and credit check. Tablet Wi-Fi only. Add to basket at checkout. skystore.com voucher. Terms apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, I started off this morning by saying that Andrew Rawnsley in The Observer said, everyone is happy. Well, everyone except Nigel Farage with his shouts of betrayal. Because that's how I felt Friday morning. I felt we'd put a huge amount on the table in return for a guarantee of nothing, and that actually as we go into the next stage of these talks, they have got the upper hand in a very big and decisive way. I'm not in quite as lonely a position as I was, because there's an awful lot of texters, tweeters and callers who are not particularly happy. And my line is, it's not what we voted for. Now, joining me, we had Vince Cable earlier on arguing that there needs to be an exit from Brexit. My next guest, I know very well from the referendum campaign. We shared platforms together up and down the country under the banner of Go, and Peter Bone, Conservative Member of Parliament for Wellingborough, was really the man behind putting Go together and designing the extraordinary green and black tie, and he's here this morning. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. I'm wearing the tie today, you're not, Nigel.
Well, I notice, you see, that you're wearing your referendum campaigning tie. Now, does this mean that you think there are more battles to fight?
Absolutely. There are at least two people in the country who are unhappy with this proposal. And the great thing about it is nothing's agreed until everything is agreed. David Davis has said this morning, we won't pay them a penny unless we get what we want. And of course, you know the EU, they'll overplay their hand and we'll walk away with no deal. And if there's £39 billion sloshing around, let's spend it on the NHS and add up. And by the way, over a 2-year period, that's actually £375 million per week.
Yeah, that would certainly go a long way to pacifying some of Boris's biggest critics. So, Peter Bone, you were less than impressed with this, with what you've offered.
What it is, I mean, I've read it, and I wish I hadn't, the report. I mean, it's completely ambiguous, and the thing is, all this is a staging point until next spring. And in next spring, you have to make a decision. Is there a good enough deal, or we walk away? Because you have to give a year to business to prepare for WTO rules. I think that's what will happen. The good news is we're 474 days away from coming out of the EU. The EU withdrawal bill will finish its committee stage in Parliament on 20th of December, and it will have a date in there of the 29th of March 2019 when we come out of this dreadful European Union superstate.
Do you honestly think that there are any circumstances in which Theresa May would walk away without a deal?
Yeah, I do actually, and I think we were fairly close to it this week. And it was only when she threatened to take me over to Brussels that they caved in.
I did see that exchange in Prime Minister's questions, but I mean, she'd actually on the Monday, your leader, country's Prime Minister, she had colluded with a foreign power to try to take Northern Ireland and put it into a different arrangement from the rest of the United Kingdom, and she'd done so without even consulting the DUP.
Well, that's the story that's put out. That's not entirely. That's not what I understand happened. What happened was the EU drew up some drafted words, which they then leaked. And by the way, the Prime Minister was never going to agree to it in the first place, which is why she hadn't talked to the DUP.
Either way, it's been a very strange old week. Peter, one of the questions is, and I've watched the Conservative Party grappling with the European question, particularly since Maastricht. At what point do we start to get some real public opposition to paying 39 billion David Davis says is the maximum amount, but it's not going to be? At what point do the Eurosceptics say that what we're offering here is not what we voted for?
Well, I'm saying that now, and I've been saying this for some time. We don't owe the EU a penny. Everyone says legally we don't owe them anything. We paid £200 billion in net contributions to them. If you walk away from a club, you don't carry on paying their bills afterwards. I mean, if Poland walked away, will we continue to give them money each and every year? Of course we wouldn't. No. The whole thing is a nonsense. And that's why, at the end of it, I'm fairly relaxed now, because I don't think for 1 minute that there will be a deal. Therefore, we don't need to worry about paying the $39 billion.
OK, well, that's certainly very much a minority view, because what I see is the Conservative cabinet, at least the vast majority of them, preparing us longer term for something that would be a little bit like Norway Plus in many ways. Regulatory alignment. Why do we want regulatory alignment?
I was climbing up the wall when I saw that. So
I thought you might just have been, yes.
So I've spoken to ministers and very senior ministers, and they say actually it doesn't mean anything. It's complete. It's put down there to keep the Irish Republic.
And then when Europhile backbenchers ring up, they say something completely opposite.
Well, the whole point of the exercise, you would, I think, freely accept we have a Remainer Parliament.
Yep.
We have a Remainer Conservative benches, and we have a Remainer government. So we have to, as I think my view represents, and your view represents the British public's view, and we must make sure we chart a course through Parliament that delivers. And first of all, getting the European Union withdrawal bill on the statute books that we're coming out of the European Union on 29th of March 29th. My red lines, for what it's worth, I think we campaigned to end free movement of people.
We did.
End paying billions and billions of pounds each year to the EU.
We did.
Make our own laws in our own country, judged by our own judges. Actually, we're still on course to do all those things.
Well,
we are, but with a big caveat. There's a 39 billion quid bung to the EU.
And there's a further 8 years that the European Court of Justice is going to have some say over this country. And worst of all, a commitment, even if there's no deal, and albeit it could be broken, I accept, but a commitment that a British Prime Minister has signed up to for regulatory alignment.
And I'm told that is just never, ever going to happen.
Now, the big difference, Peter, as you know, Sunday morning, there are a whole plethora of television programmes and radio shows about current affairs, and it's very often it's journalists talking to politicians and politicians talking to politicians and journalists talking to journalists. And the difference with LBC is that here the public get involved. So what I did earlier on. I said you were coming into the studio, and if you don't mind, I'm going to fire some questions to you that come from members of the public. And Tony says, please ask Peter Bone, how can you sit on your hands while May sells us out?
Well, if that was true, I would have betrayed the British public. But of course, that's not the case, and we're not sitting on our hands. And I don't, for the reasons I've explained, I absolutely think we will get what the British people voted for, and I don't think we will get a deal with the EU, and I don't think we'll pay them £39 billion, which is basically blackmail or a bung, whichever way you want to look at it.
Well, some optimism here from Peter Bone. A question here that really is very relevant, I know. Can you please ask Peter Bone, what happens when the EU change the rules on fishing during the interim period when we have no say?
Well, we don't know because
Richard in Leicester asked that question.
These are first of all, do I believe in an implementation period, a transition period? No. Look, we voted to come out in June 2016. By the time we get to March 2019, we should have been able to sort everything out and get on with it. If there is going to be an implementation period, that's being negotiated now, and it mustn't sell out a fisherman or anybody else. And that decision, that's when the real argument starts, I think, will be the spring of next year. And I think at that stage, I think more than likely that we will say enough is enough and walk away.
Yeah, but they're going to be setting quotas, of course, on fish for next year. Will be set in Brussels within the next couple of weeks, and I have got and a lot of people, who bought their boats up the Thames and everything, saying, well, unless we get a break on quotas over the course of the next couple of years, we may not still be in business. And that is a very real, very pressing concern. Politically, the transition period, or this new, spinning of it as the implementation period. Here's the problem. The Prime Minister says it should last for around about 2 years. Around about 2 years takes us pretty much towards the next general election. We may well find that if the implementation phase lasts until the next general election, there is a real, genuine concern that a Corbyn-led coalition could undo much of the Brexit process. And I want to ask you, are you opposed to us now moving into an implementation transition period?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. The argument was that it's up to 2 years, but of course, what the Prime Minister's already said, it can be a lot less than that. So
far, everything she's done's taken a very long time.
Well, I don't want to give the Remainers any credit, but they're playing a rather successful long game. And you're quite right, Nigel. The longer this goes on, the more danger there is of Corbyn and co getting into power and reversing it. So let's crack on and get it done.
So will you, I'm going to ask you this very clearly, will you, in terms of voting and speaking in Parliament, oppose an open-ended implementation period?
Oh, open-ended, yes. And the Prime Minister has given absolute assurance that it won't be open-ended.
In fact, she said around 2 years,
no, but she's also
which
said,
you can interpret as you wish.
No, that's correct. But what she also said was, this will be time limited, and we will set what the time limit is when we negotiate the implementation period. So it absolutely has to be time limited. If it was open ended, I couldn't support it.
Okay. Could you ask Peter Bone whether or not it's time for the 1922 committee to consider the future of Mrs May, because she is beginning to lose the confidence of the 17.4 million people?
Well, I've said this to you before. If she delivers a proper Brexit, she'll become a national hero. If she doesn't, well, she'll be out. And, it's pretty big stakes. It's big stakes for her, but even bigger stakes for the country.
And, Peter, finally, just how unpopular are you in the Parliamentary Conservative Party?
There's about 19 who, 19 or so, can we call them rebels, who don't want to support the government, don't want to support democracy, don't want to support the 17 million who want to come out. They don't like me, but I pretty much don't like them much either.
Fair dues. Thank you very much, Peter Bone. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 11:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
Air, road and rail travel's been severely disrupted by heavy snow, which continues to fall in parts of England and Wales. Birmingham, East Midlands and Luton airports have all suspended flights with delays elsewhere. Stay with LBC for the latest travel updates. The Foreign Secretary is expected to have raised the case of a British woman in prison in Iran when he met the country's president earlier. Boris Johnson's in Tehran, where Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe's been in jail since last year. And the Brexit Secretary, David Davis, says Britain will not pay a £39 billion exit bill to Brussels if the UK doesn't secure a trade deal. It appears to contradict the position of the Chancellor, who's called it inconceivable Britain would fail to honour its international obligations. LBC weather, those heavy snow showers continuing in central eastern England and Wales, but easing through the afternoon. Further south and west, a weather warning for strong winds this afternoon, a high of 4 degrees.
LBC travel in Essex. The M11 southbound stays closed between junction 6 for the M25 and junction 4 for Woodford because of debris on the road after a lorry fire earlier on. There are really long queues all the way from junction 12 for Cambridge, with the snow also affecting the traffic. In Buckinghamshire, there are queues on the M25 clockwise because of an accident in the snow earlier on between junction 16 for the M40 and junction 17 for Maple Cross. Also in Buckinghamshire, there are queues on the M40 southbound. 2 lanes are closed because of cars that have broken down in the snow between junction 4 for High Wycombe and junction 3 for Loudwater. And the snow is causing problems on the tube, including no service on the entire Metropolitan line and no Piccadilly line between Acton Town and Uxbridge and between Honest Grove and Cockfosters. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC.
Christmas. Made merrier with Sky Mobile. Unwrap a range of unmissable offers, like the Samsung Galaxy S8 with a Tab A7 for just £30 a month with 500 megabytes of data. Plus, join Sky Mobile today and get a Sky Store voucher to watch our latest releases. Ring in a Christmas made merrier. Search Sky Mobile. Ends 28 December, 30-month interest-free loan and data plan required for handset, 12-month minimum term, 18+, includes handset only and pay-as-you-go calls and texts for non-Sky TV customers. Subject to status and credit check. Tablet Wi-Fi only. Add to basket at checkout. skystore.com voucher. Terms apply.
So, a few weeks ago we had a smart meter fitted.
It's brilliant. You can watch the pennies moving and everything.
And we decided to see how far 10p's worth of energy would go.
First were the Christmas tree lights.
Then the lights in the porch and the windows.
Then the on-off lights on the garage roof.
It took the whole evening before we used up 10p.
Oh, I won't lie to you, we were made up.
See how far 10p could go in your home. Contact your energy supplier about getting your smart meter at no extra cost.
At this time of year, there's always one person who's difficult to buy for. That person that seems to have everything. If you're looking for something truly unique this Christmas, then Weber has the gift for you. The Weber iGrill, the thermometer that ensures you serve perfectly cooked food every time. The iGrill connects to an app on your smartphone. Simply tell it what you're cooking, how you'd like it cooked, and the iGrill will tell you when your food is ready. Find your perfect gift at Weber.com. Weber, for life.
At the Co-op, 2-litre bottles of Pepsi Max are only £1.25. Perfect for when Martin and Val pop by for a Christmas get-together. Christmas is coming together at the Co-op. Subject to availability. See participating stores for details. Offer ends 2nd of January 2018.
Did you know you can get real-time updates to find out when your bus is due? There are loads of mobile apps available, powered by TfL data, or you can visit our website, all of which make it easier than ever to plan your journey. Running for the bus may soon be a thing of the past. Search TfL improvements. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge bedding bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Grove, Leigh-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a Bridge bedding bed.
Christmas. Made merrier with Sky Mobile. Unwrap a range of unmissable offers, like the Samsung Galaxy S8 with a Tab A7 for just £30 a month with 500 megabytes of data. Plus, join Sky Mobile today and get a Sky Store voucher to watch our latest releases. Ring in a Christmas made merrier. Search Sky Mobile. Ends 28 December, 30-month interest-free loan and data plan required for handset, 12-month minimum term, 18+, includes handset only and pay-as-you-go calls and texts for non-Sky TV customers. Subject to status and credit check. Tablet Wi-Fi only. Add to basket at checkout. skystore.com voucher. Terms apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Laura from Shenfield says, I feel a whole lot better now, having just listened to Peter Bone. Why is he not leading the Brexit negotiations? Well, he did offer, in Prime Minister's Questions last week, to come to Brussels with the Prime Minister. That invitation was not taken up. Look, Peter was sounding very optimistic. I would just say this. We know where Mr Bone stands on Brexit. We know he's deeply unhappy with the so-called deal that was struck on Friday morning. But when he says it's all OK, because actually what will happen is they'll be really unreasonable in the EU over the course of the next year, and Mrs May will just walk away and will Brexit without a deal. I think that's wildly optimistic, because I do not see any circumstances. I really don't see any under which this Prime Minister would just simply walk away. On Twitter, I get when even the leader of the Lib Dems, Vince Cable, tells Nigel Farage that Britain has got itself a bad deal from the EU by paying vast amounts of money in for what may not be a very good trade deal, you know. Interesting. Quite a few people picking up on that. The Vince Cable thinks we're paying too much money. Anthony is calling from Newport in South Wales. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you. So has Mrs May done an absolutely tremendous job as far as you're concerned?
You're joking, aren't you?
I'm asking. I'm not,
No, she hasn't. We didn't vote for the transitional deal. We didn't vote to give her more money. We didn't vote for the ECG. And so we've just been ripped off. It's been ever since David Cameron quit on that day. I mean, the night before, I was jubilated. Independence Day.
Yes.
David Cameron quit, and from there on, all I've seen is all the politicians just run us down the road, and they're going to just take a little turn and take us straight back into Europe without us even knowing.
If Anthony, the thoughts, the hopes, the aspirations in what was the largest ever democratic exercise in this country, if they are frustrated and if people feel that they genuinely are not getting what they voted for, this has pretty serious implications for democracy, doesn't it?
What democracy?
Okay.
What have we got? What have they offered us? What we voted for? We voted to leave all this, and all they've done is offered us more of the same.
Well, she will say, no, we're leaving the European Union, and we're going to leave it, on the 29th of March 2019. So she would say we are leaving the European Union, Anthony. What are you worried about?
Leaving what? With all Labour name.
Yeah, well, I think that is the concern. Anthony, that is the concern, and I do agree at the start of this conversation with your list of what we did not vote for. I couldn't agree more, Anthony. I think there are many, many millions of people like Anthony in Newport out there, and I think the implications for democracy are actually pretty serious. I wonder what Andrew in Halifax thinks. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
Hi, so what do you think, Andrew?
Well, I think the only part of the deal that I really approved of was the absolute cast-iron guarantee that there will be no internal borders within the United Kingdom, but that's much more down to the prowess of Arlene Foster than ever it is the bungling of Theresa May.
Right.
I think the thing that prompted me to ring you this morning, Nigel, was I was absolutely incensed by what Ross, your earlier caller, said when he said that hard Brexiteers don't care about the Union.
I know!
I'm a hard Brexiteer, and nobody, Ian Paisley and Edward Carson combined, cares more about Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom than I do.
Right, okay.
And I think the thing as well is, all this nonsense about being attuned to the sensitivities of the Irish Republic, where was the Irish concern for us when they held an illegal claim to our country for 62 years and allowed their territory to be a bolt hole for IRA terrorists? Where was their concern for Britain when they launched a terrorist uprising in 1916 when we were fighting the Kaiser on the Somme and at Passchendaele? I think the Irish Republic is actually the last country whose economic sensitivities we should be attuned to.
Well, Andrew, look, we've had a very difficult, bloody history between us and Ireland over centuries, and surely, Andrew, even as a hard-line unionist, you would agree that what's happened over the course of the last decade with the peace process, and indeed with the Queen's visit to Dublin, is we have actually had much better relationship with Ireland over the last decade. Surely that's a good thing.
Well, it is, but if the Irish, in deference to their Brussels masters, are going to try and frustrate our ability not only to be an independent country, but to strike third-party deals with other countries, then they should go back to being the pariahs that they were in the 80s.
I have to say, I did think that the Irish Prime Minister, the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, in some ways has been campaigning for the wrong thing. What he should be campaigning for is the absolute necessity for Ireland to have a free trade deal with the United Kingdom. And Andrew, I've been pushing the idea that whatever the rest of the European Union decides it wants to do with us on trade, an exception should be made for Ireland because of political sensitivity. I'm absolutely certain the World Trade Organization in Switzerland would back up that idea, and that if we had free trade between the Republic and the United Kingdom, that'd be a very, very good thing for both sides of the divide in Northern and Southern Ireland.
Yes, it would. But I think Leo Varadkar has been bought hook, line and sinker by the Brussels project, and I think he'll continue to show deference to them and possibly end up with a hard border, which is what he doesn't want. And I don't want, by the way, I don't want a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. But I think it's his obstinacy and downright thick-headedness that's going to bring it about. He
may, Andrew, have overplayed his hand, and we may see a slightly different tone from him. But I agree, he's been doing the bidding of Brussels. Andrew, thank you for that. And Ross, I hope you're listening. There was a hardline Brexiteer who cares very deeply about what happens in Ireland. James is calling from Oxted in Surrey. Good morning, James.
Morning.
Good morning. So, good deal, bad deal?
I think it's about the best deal that we can hope for at this time, bearing in mind how divided everybody is. So it gives everybody room on both sides. And, of course, this was always going to be a compromise. And as you've always said, we're not leaving Europe, we're just leaving the EU. So we still have to live with these people.
Yep.
And, we love them very much. It's just we don't like Brussels.
That's always been the argument, James, that I've pushed very, very strongly. In fact, I loathe Brussels, to be clear, the unelected old men and their power, and I don't like seeing a British Prime Minister kowtowing to them really very much. So you feel this is the best...
I mean, I've read through the whole joint statement.
Yes.
And pretty much of it is all can be read both ways, but there's point number 69 that I wanted to draw to your attention, which we're talking about basically the bill for leaving in our obligations, and it talks specifically. Reading it says the data for calculation of the UK obligations will be drawn up from publicly available sources where possible, and audited by the European Court of Auditors. Now, I don't have a great deal of faith in the European Court of Auditors.
No.
And you've talked about this because they've never actually produced an externally verified set of accounts for anybody. So the bill could get interesting if the European Court of Auditors starts messing with that.
Yeah, and the argument that's being made, and indeed David Davis was making this on the Mar programme this morning, is that actually the exit bill will not be big, because it'll be a small amount of money for many, 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 many years. And James, I don't trust that. I think they'll find ways to up that bill. One thing I've learned from all my years in Brussels is there are no rules, really. They make them up as they go along. The other thing, James, is that I didn't vote for a lengthy, ongoing financial relationship with the European Union that lasts for decades. I want a clean break on everything and for us to start again and move on.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we are part of Europe, although we're no longer going to be part of the EU. So, we will have this integral part, particularly as London is the financial centre of Europe and will remain so. If you've only got, 2 million people in Frankfurt, 2.2 million in Paris, and 11 million plus in London. The financial strength and the infrastructure is here and will remain here. But I think that has a massive implication for Ireland, particularly where Dublin is a great Euro facilitation area for people in the City of London. Funds get listed in Ireland and then it gets sold to IFAs and intermediaries.
But we can all work together, James, can't we? We can all work together without Brussels, can't we?
Very much so.
Yeah.
We're doing it now. And as I say, if you're a French man and you're going to travel to Ireland, you have to go through border controls, because they're not in the Schengen area.
Mm-hmm.
If that Frenchman then decides to drive up to Belfast and then catch a ferry to Liverpool, he doesn't have any more, he doesn't have any more passport controls. So the whole Irish border thing, it's fine as it is. If we have a free trade agreement, which is
it solves everything.
In the best interest of Ireland,
yep.
You just have the same.
Absolutely. James, I thank you for your optimism. James feeling upbeat that we're going to sort this all out. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
A hugely disproportionate 84% of collective child grooming and rape cases have involved British South Asian Muslim men. Why are we still so uncomfortable accepting this fact?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Give the gift of the ultimate adrenaline rush for Christmas with Bedlam Paintball. Buy a £20 gift voucher for 10 players from Bedlam Paintball with over 100 venues across the country. The voucher includes all your protective equipment, marker gun and up to 8 games, all for only £20. Just text DEAL to 63333 for your voucher. Get our special Christmas offer now. Conditions at bedlampaintball.co.uk. Text costs £20 plus your standard network charge. Text DEAL to 63333.
Oh, nice paper, snowman. Oh, you've wrapped it well. No way! I have wanted this fitness tracker for ages. How did you know?
Surprise them with something thoughtful this Christmas. Free delivery on over 10 million new items. From the sharpest fashion to the techiest tech. eBay. Fill your cart with colour.
Time to slow down? Or not just yet? How about now? Now? Perhaps you'd start slowing down now. When it rains, it kills. Last year, 2,987 people were killed or seriously injured when driving in the rain. When it's time for your wipers, it's time to slow down. Highways England.
You know the drill. Put your savings in the bank, earn interest, feel utterly underwhelmed. It's time to talk to Cufflink, the award-winning peer-to-peer company. They're not a bank, but are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. You lend your money with theirs onto property loans, and you can get up to 7.2% gross interest on the whole lot. Make the most of your savings with Cufflink. Visit lendingtogether.co.uk. Past returns are not necessarily a guide to future returns. Your capital is at risk.
Getting set to deck the halls? At B&Q, we've got a huge Christmas range of real and artificial trees, decorations and lights, including 120 LED lights. Was £9, now £7. Hurry, that's an unmissable offer. For great deals this weekend, come to B&Q. Offer in-store only, while stocks last. Some stores excluded. See DIY.com for details.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, we're talking about Mrs May's Brexit deal, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I've been less than impressed ever since that moment on Friday morning. It seems there are now one or two other voices joining me in their concern and criticism. And, of course, one of the big discussion points has, of course, been the Irish border, Ireland, and much talk about the Good Friday Agreement, much talk about the peace process, and that nothing must be done to threaten that, which is why I've been really arguing very strongly for a special status to be given between Ireland and the United Kingdom, and there should be a free trade deal there, whatever else happens with the rest of the United Kingdom. Well, while we're talking about Northern Ireland, I'm being joined this morning. I'm going to be joined by Alan Barry, and he's the spokesman for Justice for Northern Ireland veterans. And this is a story that I don't think has really had the kind of coverage that it deserves. Alan Barry, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. Would you just, as the co-founder of this, please explain to people what Justice for Northern Ireland veterans does?
Okay, it's interesting that we're having this call today because it's actually our first anniversary.
Right.
On the 10th of December last year, Roy Brinkley and myself, who's the co-founder, along with myself, decided to set this group up after reading an article about Dennis Hutchins in one of the national newspapers.
And Dennis Hutchins is who?
Dennis Hutchins is currently in the news all the time because he's one of, he's the guinea pig, really, I suppose, to a certain extent, in terms of prosecutions from the legacy issue. He was questioned on 2 previous occasions, cleared on 2 previous occasions, actually had a letter from the then Director of Public Prosecutions back in 1974, telling him there was no case to answer.
So this is just to give our listeners, Alan, context on this. So Dennis Hutchins was a soldier, a British Army soldier, serving in Northern Ireland back in the early 1970s.
1974.
1974.
I'll just give you the background to it if I can. Dennis was involved. He was a section commander out on patrol in Northern Ireland back in 1974. On the evening before the incident that he's been charged with took place, his platoon, his section, intercepted an IRA gang who were effectively taking weapons from an arms stash. There was a firefight between Dennis's section and the IRA gang. I think 3 were captured, 2 actually managed to escape. The following day, the whole area was on lockdown. Cordons were put in place, as you would expect, to stop these 2 individuals from escaping. And that's when the incident took place that Dennis has now been charged with.
And the incident was it the death of somebody, or?
Yeah, it was the death of a man called John Pat Cunningham. I don't think it would be appropriate to go into the detail of it, but the incident took place. The incident was investigated at the time. Dennis was cleared along with his section at the time. It was then re-investigated again. Dennis was cleared yet again, and then the case was reopened based on apparently new evidence. No new evidence has actually been brought forward, by the way. And Dennis, who's effectively 76 years of age, is suffering from liver failure, renal failure. He's a very unwell man. He's been dragged backwards and forwards to Northern Ireland on several different occasions. He was actually questioned when he was arrested. He was held for 48 hours, questioned, I think, 36 times. And then Harold Shipman was only questioned 10 times. So what we find is that there's this complete disproportionality between the legacy issue and what's going on at the moment. I mean, let's not forget, Nigel, that over 300 convicted, and I'm saying convicted murderers, gangsters and terrorists were released from jail under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah, I mean, the point, Alan, about the Good Friday Agreement is that people who committed sectarian atrocities on both sides of the divide, it was decided in the name of peace to wipe the slate clean. And to start again. And you're right, I think it was over 400 people actually were let out of prison. So this applied to those that were involved directly in that sectarian civil war, but it doesn't apply to British Army soldiers. That's really the point here, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot we could talk about here, but let's take the Good Friday Agreement. A deal was done behind closed doors between the Blair government and Sinn Féin IRA.
Yeah.
It was supported by a section of the unionist community, but the vast majority of the unionist community did not support this agreement at the time. Effectively, the rights of British soldiers and members of the security forces in Northern Ireland and soldiers who were posted to Northern Ireland were sold out. We don't have any rights. But to get that deal done, Blair and his government effectively left immunity for the IRA. And even if an IRA terrorist is convicted, let's take the Birmingham pub bombings as an example. Let's take, Michael Hayes, who's come forward.
I'd rather not be specific about any of those things, Alan.
Let's take one of those atrocities, Nigel. There's plenty of them, and let's say that one of those individuals is now convicted. The maximum sentence he will receive is 2 years under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement, and that means he will be out of jail within a year. So we find now that soldiers are not covered, and we're not covered because when the Good Friday Agreement was agreed, one of the conditions was that soldiers should not be covered within the terms of that agreement.
Where, Alan, listeners who want to know more about this, and particularly about the Dennis Hutchins case, where can they go to find out more about this?
Okay, so we have a group called Justice for Northern Ireland Veterans.
Yep.
We've held 3 separate rallies in London now. We've got another rally in London on the 3rd of February next year.
Yeah.
And we are meeting at Horse Guards Parade on the 3rd of February at 11 a.m. A last demonstration.
A website, Alan, people could look at?
Yeah, we've got www.justicefornivets.com.
Okay.
And we've got our Facebook page, which is Justice for Northern Ireland Veterans.
Alan, thank you very much for coming on and explaining that British Army soldier veterans are being treated very differently to other people caught up in that awful conflict. Did Theresa May strike a good deal or a bad deal? I'm going to ask James in Barnes that very question.
Hi, Nigel. Yes, well, I think she did, bearing in mind what she was given to, what she was trying to do. But I wanted to ask you this question, Nigel.
Yeah.
You and your fellow Brexiteers make great bones, and you talk about it every time.
Well, Peter Bones, yeah.
We're free to make our own trade deals. The rest of the world out there,
yeah.
You know, we can do it like Australia and Canada. But let me ask you, last week, Japan signed the biggest trade deal ever with the EU. Now, do you seriously expect educated, sensible people, Nigel, to think that little Britain on its own is going to get anywhere near the sort of trade deal that the EU
James
has done with Japan?
James,
and furthermore,
James, hang on.
Great for Mr. Trump.
hang on a second. James, let's just talk about Japan and trade deals, shall we? Switzerland, piddling little Switzerland, negotiated its own trade deal with Japan 10 years ago. For 10 years, you can buy a car manufactured in Japan without paying 10% on top, which is what you have to do in this country. The EU finally got round to doing a trade deal with Japan. The point about the EU and trade deals, James, the argument they're big, therefore they can do better, is baloney. They're big, they take years to get anywhere. And I'll tell you this, James, Switzerland, South Korea, Singapore and Chile, all relatively small countries, have global trade deals with much, much bigger GDPs than anything the European Union itself has been able to achieve. James, I thank you, but it is a good point. It is a good point. The EU has done a trade deal with Japan, and perhaps for me, the most surprising thing I think that has come out of this morning, in particular with the conversation with Vince Cable, was him kind of saying, look, trade with the European Union is vital, and who else are we going to do trade deals with? Well, I still repeat the point. I've said it 100 times. 85% of the global economy is outside of the European Union, and a deal signed up by a Prime Minister committing us to regulatory alignment, whatever that means it's very much more difficult to sign up to trade deals with anybody else. I'm not alone anymore in being deeply critical of the Prime Minister's view. I get the feeling after this morning there's millions of you out there. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7. Coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's Alex Salmond. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, heterosexual couples could be allowed to enter civil partnerships as a bill will go to Parliament, paving the way for cohabiting couples to get the same legal rights as those who are married. So I'm asking, is the institution of marriage over? Before that, Ofsted Chief Amanda Spielman has revealed that difficult pupils are effectively receiving life sentences by being expelled from schools merely to boost league table rankings. Should any child ever be completely written off like this? But first, a new study by British Pakistani researchers at Quilliam International has found that a hugely disproportionate